readers, Chris here. Today I am finally going to be counting down my top 10 reads of 2022. Not only are these my top 10 books from last year, I'm also going to rank them by order of my most favorite. And I know I always say this, but this was super hard to do. Super hard to do because most of these books I really loved. So the order was super difficult. And right up before I filmed this video, I may have switched one or two out. So anyway, before I jump into this list, there is something that I want to say right up front that isn't so happy news, but if you are a member of the BookTube community, then you are probably aware or have heard the news about our wonderful friend and fellow booktuber, Pax Panic. If for some reason you don't know Pax, I'll link her channel. Go check out any of her videos. That will tell you everything you need to know about Pax. And if you've been following me for a while and maybe you're not a member of the BookTube community, if you saw the winter unhaul that I did last month, I'll link that video above as well. She was the one that sent me the little crocheted ferret, the snowball ferret. Again, anything you need to know about Pax, it says it right there. She's an amazing person, an amazing friend, an amazing booktuber, and she's having a very difficult time right now. If you want to know more and you want to help out Pax, you want to hear about her journey, a fellow booktuber, Mr. Morningstar, put together a really nice video talking about her situation and also has a link to a GoFundMe account that was started for her. So I will link Mr. Morningstar's video above up here. Also going to put the link to the GoFundMe in the description box of this video. And if you are around tomorrow, Sunday, January 8th, another booktuber, Nymeria, she's going to be doing a live event, a live charity event over on her channel. I will link information for that as well in case you are interested. It's really great to see the booktube community coming together during such a difficult time, and I'm really happy that I am part of this community and have a chance to help out someone who really needs it right now. Okay, I know that was kind of a heavy topic and there's not really a good way to transition from that into this list, but I'm going to do my best, starting with my 10th favorite book of 2022, The Elite by Kiera Cass. The Elite is the second book of the Selection series, and really, I enjoyed the entire series. This was a series I had never read before this year. I've been reviewing it all year long. This is the one that's like The Hunger Games meets The Bachelor, where we have this group of young women. They're all competing for this prince's heart. But I think it's this second book is the one that like really stood out to me in this series, really stood out to me. It's got so much fun stuff. It really expands on all the characters. You know, in the first book, there's like 35 girls. We don't get to know all of them. In this one, there's only 6 remaining. So we really get to know the girls that are left. We get to know them more intimately. It really ups the stakes. It ups the stakes both within the competition and then also like the world at large, because outside of the competition, there is stuff happening in this world with neighboring countries, there's rebels, there's all this stuff going on, and it really builds on that. Also, my personal favorite, in this dystopian world, there is no such thing as Halloween, but someone discovers mention of this holiday in like an old journal. So they throw their first like Halloween party. And as someone who absolutely loves Halloween, I thought that was super fun. So that is why Elite ended up on my list. Next up, my 9th pick for 2022 is going to be Crush by Tracy Wolff. Crush is the second book in this Crave series, and up until like this morning, I actually had Crave on this list, but at the last second, I decided to switch it out with Crush. So if Crave is basically an updated version of Twilight, we have a young girl, she's at a new school, she falls in love with a vampire, etc., etc., etc. I loved that book. It was funny, it's silly, it's over the top, it's ridiculous, but it knows that it's ridiculous. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Like, I feel like Twilight takes itself very seriously, and there's definitely a place for that. I love Twilight. But this book, this series, doesn't take itself seriously, and because of that, it really made me laugh. Now, Crush, on the other hand, like this, if the first one was Twilight, this one has nothing to do with Twilight. It takes the story and the characters in a completely new and different direction, and I really loved it. I just finished this on December 31st. I have not even reviewed this book yet, but let me tell you about it now. Grace, our main character in book 1, she was very much obsessed with Jackson, her vampire boyfriend. Oh, whatever Jackson wants, like to the detriment of her own, like, health. It's, oh, Jackson this, Jackson that. In this book, she really, like, has way more agency. She really stands up for herself, and she really lets Jackson know that, like, hey, I don't need someone to save me all the time. I need someone that's going to help me save myself. I thought that is an amazing change, so much appreciated. And there's also the introduction of a second vampire in this book, Jackson's brother, aka Hudson. Now, there's a lot of Hudson in this book. If you haven't read it, I don't want to give it away. But oh my God, what a great character. What a steamy love triangle they're setting up with Grace and the two brothers. And I love Hudson. I love Hudson. He is that, like, typical, like, bad boy character, but, like, he's really kind of misunderstood, and underneath it, he really has a good heart. I'm a sucker for a good bad boy, so that is why I switched out Crave and put Crush on my list at number 9. My 8th favorite book for last year was a complete surprise to me, and that's going to be A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. If you remember, I talked about this book a lot, like earlier in the year. This was also an Owl Crate book box. You can see it has the lovely silver sprayed edges, and it also has a really cool reversible dust jacket that we see. We've got a little Ouija plankin there. It's got some really cool stuff. So this book is about, again, a young girl that's out of college, and she has just come back to the school after having taken some time off. And she took some time off because she had a friend that died. But now she's back, and she's in this house, this, like, special house that kind of has all these rumors because all the girls that are there are into, like, occult type stuff. And our main character, as she gets deeper and deeper into this, like, occult stuff, she really starts to question if she can trust her own mind. That's right. This book has an unreliable narrator. Even when it comes to the things that happened in the past with, like, how her friend died, you don't know. You really don't know through most of this book what happened. You don't know if our main character was actually responsible. You don't know if her memories are correct. She doesn't even know if her memories are correct. There's a girl that she's starting to, like, really fall in love with, but this girl may or may not be using her. You don't know who to trust. You don't know who's telling the truth. Are these crazy, like, supernatural things actually happening, or is someone just messing with her, or is it all in her mind? You don't know until, like, the very end of the book. This book was a total train ride. It totally messed with my mind. I found it really fun, really fun. I like books that mess with my mind. I don't know what that says about me, but this book was a surprisingly good time, so that's why it was number 8. My 7th favorite book from last year was actually a buddy read, and that is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This was my first introduction to John Gwynne. I read this with David's book reviews. As some of you may know, we're actually in the middle of reading the sequel right now, but this first one was such a great story. It's probably, other than, like, one other book that I'll mention, it's definitely one of the best, like, adult fantasies I've read in recent years. It feels fresh and new, even though it's based off of, like, really old, like, Norse mythology and like Viking mythology. It's just really cool. The thing that I really love about this series is the characters. This book has amazing characters. There's 3 main characters whose point of view we kind of follow throughout the story. Orca, Varg, and Elvar. And Orca, if you remember from my review, was my absolute favorite. She's a mother, but she's also like a warrior. She is like a mama bear personified. She is a mama bear personified. Even though the blood of a wolf god might actually flow in her veins, I just think of her as like a mama bear. She will do anything to protect her children, and she is just a absolute badass. Love her. Love this story. It's really, really fun, really, really cool. And I mean, there's a giant dragon god in it. I mean, do I really have to say that much else? Number 6 is going to be my other favorite adult fantasy of the year, and that's going to be the Winter Night trilogy, The Bear and the Nightingale. This is the first book in the Winter Night trilogy. I did read the second one, The Girl in the Tower, which I absolutely loved as well. And that was another one I was kind of going back and forth on if I should choose this one or that one. What I ultimately decided is that the beginning of The Girl in the Tower I thought was a tad too slow. The second half of that book is super exciting. I think the second half of that book is probably better than this one. But overall, I think this is the better, more well-rounded book overall. But The Bear and the Nightingale, the Winter Night trilogy, this is based on Russian folklore. Russian folklore. So we have a young girl named Vasya, and she lives with her family in like this really small village at the edge of Russia, the forest. And within this village, there's all these little creatures, because Russian folklore, there's like a different god or creature for like pretty much everywhere. There's like the one that lives in the stove, that one that's in the stable that takes care of the horses, the one that takes care of the plants. The thing is like, because of the Catholic Church that has kind of come in and really converted most of the town to Catholicism, Vasya is one of the only ones left who can actually still see these little creatures, because she doesn't believe in this new religion that's come in. So, but because of that, because her, like, the original religion, the original folklore is fading away, there's kind of this evil force, let's just say, that's kind of starting to build up. And now the town, because they've converted, has no protection against it. And of course, no one believes Vasya, this young girl, no one believes that she could possibly like help save the entire town. This book has so much going in it. There's like, obviously, I mentioned religion, so there's religion, there's politics, there's gender politics, there's a lot of, Vasya being a girl, her only options in life are either A, to get married, or B, be in a nunnery, and of course, that's not what she wants for herself. There is so much good stuff in here, and the mythology is amazing. There's this guy called the Winter King. He's super cool. There's so many cool people in the village. Some of the villains, like one of the guys in the church, is he a villain? Is he not really a villain? Like, he's obviously being manipulated from some dark force, but he's like super believes in what he's doing. It's just a great story. It's a great story. And the way that it's written, I wish I could explain it, but the actual way that the book is written is so unique. It just flows like a fairy tale. It just reads like a fairy tale. It's amazing. If you're looking for a new fantasy, I cannot recommend The Bear and the Nightingale more. Why did I put this one over Shadow of the Gods? The only reason is, for me personally, I feel like this book comes off a tad more feminine, and Shadow of the Gods comes off a tad more masculine. And that's really just a personal preference. I'm a female, therefore I kind of gravitate towards this one more. But it was a very close ranking, because Shadow of the Gods is also an amazing book as well. All right, now here's where things get really difficult with the top of the top, My number 5 pick for 2022 is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. And I love what it says on the front cover of this book. It's a quote by V.E. Schwab, and it says, the book is basically like being wrapped up in a big gay blanket. And really, that's kind of like the perfect way to describe this book. This book is like this sweet, comforting, lovely tale. It's a found family tale. It's a tale about finding out not only who you are, but where you belong. To me, it very much has like some Harry Potter vibes going on here, because basically we have an orphanage, and it's not just any orphanage. It's an orphanage for children who are special, that have special powers. So like there's a pixie that lives there, there's a gnome, there's a little boy named Lucy who may or may not be the child of Lucifer. And basically, in order for this orphanage to kind of stay in business, it's visited by this caseworker. So the caseworker works for upper management, who's supposed to run all these orphanages around town, and he is a very strict, by-the-book guy. He's very black and white. What are you doing, Lola? Don't knock my camera over. I would pick you up, but you're a giant cat. Okay, hold on. Everyone, meet Lola. Say hi, Lola. Okay. Anyway, so we have a character, very black and white, by the book. He doesn't like things going off script. He doesn't like things that are different. So of course, when he arrives at this orphanage that is full of children who are different and run by a headmaster who himself is very different, it totally rocks his world. Totally rocks his world. But like I said, what follows is an incredibly sweet and moving story about finding out who you really are, where you belong, who your family is. It's a found family type story, and it's just really sweet. It's full of great messages, and yes, it's so sweet. It made my teeth hurt at times, but ultimately, I just really loved it. My 4th favorite book for 2022 is The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. The Mistborn series is the first series I've ever read by Brandon Sanderson, and thanks to this book, it definitely will not be my last. I enjoyed both Mistborn and the second one, The Well of Ascension, but in both of those books, I did feel like they start off very slow. I did feel that way. Both have amazing endings, but this book I feel like is the best of the series, to me anyway, because I don't think that there's a slow point in this book. I don't think there's a slow part of this book. It's amazing. We have our young hero here. She's been through a lot at this point, but basically they've come to a place where like the whole world is on the edge of destruction. They've released this evil force out into the world, and now Vin and all of her friends are like trying to figure out how to stop it. Now, if that wasn't enough, there's also like all these different, kingdoms and areas that kind of all have their own agenda. So while Vin and her crew are trying to be like, hey, we need everyone to come together or else the world is basically going to end, you have all these other rulers that are like, well, I'm just going to do what's best for my people, and it's like, there's a lot of politicking going on in here. There's also a lot of fighting going on here. There's a lot of political intrigue going on here. And the way that this book ends, I feel like this book has one of the best endings that I've ever read in a fantasy series. It is really hard to end like such a big epic story like this series is. It's really hard. I think The Wheel of Time, I think that series does it very well. And I think this one does it really well too. I love the ending of this book personally. And some of the characters that I really loved, this guy, Sazid. Sazid is like this, I don't know how to explain his character if you're not familiar with him, but he basically collects all this knowledge. He's like a human encyclopedia. So he goes around, he's what's known as a metal mind, so he can store information in his mind. He's like a super cool character, Super cool. There are so many cool characters in here, but what happens to Sazid is my personal favorite. I just love how this series is wrapped up and how the story is concluded. I know there are more stories that are kind of related to this world. I definitely want to get to them at some point. I definitely want to read more Brandon Sanderson. I'm going to make that a goal for this year because this book was just so dang good. My third favorite book of 2022 is going to be Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is a book that I don't think is for everyone, but oh my god, did I love it. I love it. This book puts the dark in dark academia. We have a young girl, she's going to school at Yale, and she belongs to a house, a secret society called Lath House. And what Lath House does is Lath House is basically supposed to police the activities of all the other houses. Because at Yale in New Haven, Connecticut, there's all these secret societies, and all of them deal in the occult and deal with supernatural stuff. Like one does like weather magic, another one does a different type of magic. There's all these things going on, and Lath House is supposed to like kind of oversee everything, make sure no one is abusing their power. Now, in this book, there is a murder that is seemingly unrelated. It's just a random girl. She wasn't even a student. She just happened to be killed on the school's property. And kind of the town and the administration at the school are like, she's just a random girl. It doesn't matter what happened to her. It doesn't have anything to do with us. You need to let it go. But our main character, Galaxy, aka Alex Stern, is like, no, I'm not going to accept that. There is something else going on here. And what follows is this really like in-depth deep dive into like the goings on at these societies. There's a lot in here about, you know, wealth and power and the fact that she's the only one that cares that this woman's life has seemingly been discarded by everyone. Like, there is some good stuff in here. There's also like a secondary plot line where there was this guy named Darlington. As of the start of the story, Darlington has been missing. And as we go throughout the story, there are a lot of flashbacks into what may or may not have happened to this Darlington character. The sequel to Ninth House comes out next week on January 10th, Hellbent, and from what I've been reading, it says that it's going to dive further into trying to bring Darlington back from wherever he is, and I literally cannot wait. Cannot wait to find out what happens. I loved this book, and I hope that the second one lives up. That brings me to my top 2 picks, which, again, I had a hard time deciding between where I wanted these two, because one of these books is one of my favorite books of all time. I've read it a million times. I reread it this year. It's an automatic favorite. Does that mean it automatically wins? The other book in here I read for the first time this year, and it totally blew my mind. So I went back and forth. Should I give the new book the title because it's new? Should I give the old one because I know it's a favorite? What I ultimately went with is that my number 2 pick for 2022 is Misery by Stephen King. Yes, Misery is legit one of my favorite books of all time. It's like, you know, Harry Potter, Misery. I just love Misery. I've done a whole video about why I love this book, about it's a personal choice. It's personal to me. I just love the subject and the materials that it covers so much. Again, I'll link it up above if you want to know more about it. I don't think I really have anything new to say about it other than I just really love Misery. So that brings me to my number 1, which I decided I would give this new book a chance to be number 1, and that's going to be Geralds Game by Stephen King. Yes, my top 2 books for this year both ended up being Stephen King books, but that's okay. I read a ton of Stephen King, so I mean, they have to end up on the list once in a while. Gerald's Game was such an amazing book, such an amazing read. It's very similar to Misery in that I feel like it works on multiple levels. Misery, we have a guy, a writer, struggling to write while he's also being terrorized by this super fan. In Gerald's Game, we have a woman that is stuck, handcuffed to a bed by herself, literally not only fighting for her life physically, but fighting for her life mentally and emotionally. Because our character in this book is trapped. She is trapped physically in one location that she can't get out of, but she is also trapped emotionally and mentally because she went through a traumatic experience in her past, and ever since that happened, she's been stuck emotionally. And what she goes through in this book to free herself, not only free herself from her physical situation, but to also free herself emotionally and mentally is just, it's just wow. It blew my mind. And again, I say this a lot, but as a woman, I love a good story of like female empowerment and like females like, you know, taking charge. And this book is that. This book is that. God, it's so good. It is so good. But I feel like, you know, a book is what you take from it. Someone can read this book and just see the surface level. Oh, it's about a woman handcuffed to a bed, and there may or may not be a guy creeping around the house. But again, someone else like myself reads this and goes, wow, that woman isn't just trapped physically. She is trapped mentally and emotionally. And her life, even if she gets unhandcuffed, she's still going to be trapped unless she deals with her past. Wow, such a good book, so powerful, so amazing. This is just another example of why Stephen King is such a master storyteller. There you have it. Those are my top 10 reads of last year, 2022. So now I want to know what some of your favorite books from last year were. Was it anything I mentioned? Something I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff coming your way soon. All right, everyone, happy reading.